Okay, I don't know if you can tell or not, but everything is slowly starting to close in on me. I'm going to have to clean up this desk a little bit soon. Um, for our lesson, you need to have a texture-based item. There are, gosh, 1,000,001 different products that you can use to get texture. You only need to actually have one of these. The least likely one to use would be gesso. And the reason for that is because it just flattens out quite a bit once it dries. But if it's all you have, then gesso's fine. You can use, this is actually crackle paste, but I'm pretty sure I have a light molding paste around here somewhere and I just can't find it. But this is an artist material, artist grade material, I guess you would say, as well as obviously gesso is. Then you start going into some of the more variety of things. If you're one of my students, then you're probably familiar with using spackle or any type of plaster product. Spackle gets a really good height to it and it holds its shape very well. Whoops, throwing things now. I have a fancy version of decorative texture medium that actually has a it has like a glitter shimmer. That's what they call it, a shimmer. It has a shimmer in it. It's actually a little bit dangerous and not something that you should use with just your bare hands. But if you have some, that you own, then you're gonna already know that. Alternatives. One of my absolute favorite things to use to create texture actually is wood filler, and the reason is because it's really heavy. It's paintable and sandable, and when used in its raw form, I'll show it to you. When used in its raw form, it's this color, and then it dries to kind of a bone white, and it looks a lot like bone. So this is one of my all-time favorite materials to use, other than spackle. A few other alternatives you can use. This is silicone based, but you can also just use regular caulking that you would use, as long as it's paintable. Any type of caulking. What else? And I actually have this, which is a crackle paint, distressed crackle paint, but it dries. It goes on really thick. It reminds me a lot of tar gel. It goes on really thick and it holds its shape pretty well, and it actually, the edge is round just slightly, which can be really nice depending on the effect you're going for. Trying to think if there's anything else. And then of course there's also gel medium. Now the only reason that I don't typically use gels for when I want texture is because they tend to be just ever so slightly, kind of like the caulk, a little bit spongy, or I mean, they dry hard, but if you compare them to the hardness of, say, plaster, it's completely different. So I usually tend to just use the spackle. It dries extremely quickly. If I'm using the wood filler, which is one of my favorites, it takes a long time to dry. So I tend to stay away from using that unless I know I've got a lot of time. Now I would use this if I were doing this within my own time frame. I would use this. But because I'm trying to do, these lessons and part them out by days, I'm going to use the spackle because I know it's going to dry super fast. You can use a variety of different textures also if you're interested, because using a variety would look interesting with the effect that we're going to, goal we're trying to achieve. And normally I kind of keep it to myself what we're ultimately going to do. But I think in this case, to help you understand where you're headed, I kind of want to, sort of tell you in advance what we're going to end up with. Have you ever seen the medallions that go, up on a ceiling, usually around a ceiling mounted light fixture. Um, I think they look similar to this. This looks like one of those medallions. And that's kind of ultimately what we're going to make, except that I don't want, when I did this one, it builds up and gets thicker towards the center. And the medallions aren't quite like that. The centers are usually pretty thin so that you can, attach your light fixture to the ceiling. So that was just one of my samples that I did. So this is similar to what we're going to end up with. And it is really glossy. That's kind of what it looks like. When I do things that are a little bit abstract, I tend to really like a glossy finish. So that's why this is glossy. And the one I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to go ahead and let me see. I'm going to start out doing it not glossy, and we're going to get to a finished sort of level, but then I'm going to show you the glossy side of it as well. What you're going to need. Other than having a texture medium, you're going to need spare paper, because you don't want to try to put the first one down and then wait for it to dry, and then your second one and wait for it to dry. So we're going to use separate pieces of paper and build up, layer them in the end. So let me just, actually I didn't pre-grab paper out. So the thinner the paper, the better for this. So I'm probably just going to use thin wood. If I was just going to use paper, I would use thin copy paper. I'm going to give you some other sample ideas, and I'm using a little bit of a mix of them. Another really awesome thing to use would be deli paper or wax paper or tissue paper. Now, cutting tissue paper and even some deli papers can be a little tricky. So if you feel like you're struggling trying to cut it, then and you need to cut it, then I would say don't use it. Use something else. This is just thin copy paper. If you have doilies, and by doilies I mean the little paper doilies. If you have them, these are a large portion of what I'm going to use to start mine out. And I love the way these look. I had doilies that I was spraying through, and I got to the point where I'd sprayed through them so much that they were not really useful anymore for spraying through. So I glued them down in my journal and painted over them, and that was a couple of years ago, and I really loved the look of it. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to do for this lesson, I thought, doilies would be perfect. So I am going to use some of my doilies, but I want to give you other alternatives. If you don't have doilies, you can make your own designs. I have like stacks of stuff over here, so just bear with me for a moment while I dig. I'm a horrible snowflake cutter. But if you go onto Pinterest, you'll find hundreds and hundreds of snowflake patterns that you can cut out of paper just by doing some clever folding. So you could get a very doily-like look by just taking paper and scissors and use your computer and go find some doily tutorials. And I don't think they even take a very long time to do. I didn't even use anything. I just folded it up and just made some cuts in it. And then when I cut out, the thing that I kind of don't want us to have are solid circle, I'll show you. On this one, a couple of them, I used thicker paper, and I got this, let me see if I can get it up to the camera, this hard edge of the circle. I want to try to avoid that this time. So when I cut it out, because I don't want the center to build up really fat or really thick, so I cut it out, and when I cut it out, I just cut it. I drew a circle, but then I just kind of cut it with a pair of scissors manually. So that's one option. With this one, I used, and most of us probably have these, I just used decorative scissors and went around the edge. I did the exact same thing for this, but it's a different pair. And then when you were at the point where you wanted to thin out the center of it, you can just take your decorative scissors again depending on how thick you want it to be. And cut out your center. So now you have one of those rings of a medallion. And I'm going to put the photo that originally inspired me up in the video now. And I'll also just go ahead and put it in the class. And what originally inspired me was someone was just using them as wall art, but I thought, and that's beautiful. But I saw that and I thought, wow, wouldn't it be neat if we did, our journal page that way? And depending on the size of your journal, and I'm going to just cut this one with just the scissors to show you how I did that. Depending on the size of your journal and depending on whether or not you're using a book. So if you're using a book that the pages are attached, there's going to be some texture, and you're going to need to be able to work over that later on. So you might want to do it on a separate piece, like a piece of cardstock, and then just add it in or tip it in with some tape or something, so that you can work on it and enjoy, making it with lots of texture, but you don't have to try to work over that texture later underneath one of your, pages. So for, just to cut it with just scissors, if you don't have decorative scissors, I literally just, you can do any design you want. I did a slightly wavy pattern. That's it. That's all I did. And then, that gave you a decorative circle that you can use. And we want to build them up. So we want to kind of create what I would, term concentric circles. So these two happen to be the exact same size. But what you really don't want it to be like this, because then they're layered onto each other. If you're going to do that, you probably would do it like this. But the problem is that the outer edges of this one are going to be over the texture of the other one. So I would try to make the circles a lot more concentric. So I kind of cut these out. If you have a die cutting machine, have a blast, because you can cut just about anything you want. I just did straight, I'm going to turn them over so they're not so confusing. Just plain straight, oh, well, you can't see them that well. Plain straight circles. And all I did was just, make some circles. So like these two are pretty close together. So I probably would just not use that one. And so then I've got this one, and I'm going to skip another one. So this is kind of what we want, because that's kind of what those medallions look like. Except, of course, that we want them to be textured, and we want everything to be one color. But that way, you could do something like this, right? And then I'll just show you with my doilies, even though we're not quite ready yet. All I'm going to do is this center one. I know from past experience that usually I can just pull it right away, but let me get my little snips and snip a couple of these. It should just pull. Yeah, it's just going to pop right away. There's a couple that are thick that aren't going to pop easy. And these are just, really old. I've done a ton of texture and ink and paint over top of them. So they're not anything fancy. I'm just going to keep going at this here real quick. See if I can get this out. I would use my X-Acto knife, but I don't have it in here. It's actually where I do my oil painting at, because I was sharpening pencils. Okay, so did I get this? Can remove this. Normally it falls apart. I don't know why all of a sudden today it doesn't want to. But so here you go. Now that's kind of, you have to ignore the fact that there are multiple colors, but that's kind of starting to get it started. And then I've got a much larger one here that, let's see if I can easily pull this one without destroying it. I'm just going to cut it. It's like I can tell I keep ripping it. So I'm just going to use my scissors and just go along and You don't, I mean, absolutely have to use circles. I think they look good, circles, and you know, circles was kind of the inspiration with those medallions. But, you know, if you want to, you could get a little creative and do some other shape. As long as they're kind of concentric, I think it would still look really interesting. And I'm going to show you something else in just a minute. Let me just, I can't talk and do this at the same time apparently. I can't carefully cut and talk at the same time. I can wildly, randomly cut and talk at the same time, no doubt about it. Okay, so usually these fall apart on me over time as I'm using them, so that's why I had that idea. And you could actually use these. You could actually just if you can tell, this is my favorite one. And I'm going to do it twice. So you could have a circle that way. So you could put that one in the center. It's still too big. But anyway, you get the idea. So now you've got two different interesting pieces of texture. Now, depending on what how you're going about it. If you're using doilies, which I'm using for my first two circles, then you obviously don't need to add texture because they are textured. You know, they're going to be a raised effect. If you're making your own, then you just have a flat piece with fancy edges. So you're going to need to make texture on them. And adding texture on them is where the spackle really comes in. Let me clean up a little bit. And you're probably going to need overnight drying time or close to it. You may not completely need it. But keep that in mind that you know, this isn't one of those that you're going to watch videos and get it done in a couple, you know, in a day or something. What is this I have out? I have so much stuff out. Let's see if I can just move a few things around quickly so that we've got access. Okay. Let me move the stuff that we don't need right now out of the way. I'm actually going to build 2 pages as I go because I want to do one that doesn't have any design, that or that doesn't have the fancy edges. It's just these circles with texture. So I'm actually going to be building 2 as we go, and I'll show you both just in case you're interested in seeing it. But you don't have to, you know, feel like you have to do that. And here's a smaller doily that you could just cut the center out of and you would have another round. But I don't want to use it because I want to use a couple of them that I made myself. So if you made some circles or, you know, whatnot on paper, I'm going to use, let's see, I have to think about it because I need to use ones that are going to fit. I'm going to stop there, so I'm going to do 3 rounds. So I'm actually only going to add additional texture to this one. But depending on what you have going on, you might have to do more. But adding texture is super simple and super easy, and all you really need is a stencil that gives you a small design. And by small, this is laser cut scrapbook paper, and I have been using it for so long that it's like really thick. But this is a really awesome, reasonably small design, so you're going to get, you know, a pretty interesting design out of that. Let's see what else. This one is one of my stencils that I've made, and if it's the right size and it doesn't fit over here, this will give, you know, some pretty interesting texture around that circle.
You can go with something, rather geometric. Absolutely. So you could do that and get the chevron design around it. That look cool. Um, I'm dropping things over here. What else? Let me think. Um, this is one of my stencils that, again, would be kind of like a geometric design, but you could use it. Um, if you do have a paper doily, but you don't want to use it to cut it up, but you want to use it for your texture, you can, but the only problem is, depending on how it's designed, like this one's not so good. I do have another one that, where's it at? Center of it is entirely, here we go. This one's completely cut out, so there's no solid center. So this one would rate because you're going to get a pretty detailed design going on that. And then anything other than that that's going to give you, a small pattern. This is my big fat rose one that will give you an inch pattern. About it. Just anything with a small pattern to it. So this might even look pretty interesting. Um, those are the eyes I can think of. I'm actually going to do the doily because that way all of mine like the doily. And then for the circles, when I'm going to do a little bit more of a geometric design. If you make your own paper snowflakes, you want to probably, well, you can use them both ways. You can use them this way, as like I'm doing with doilies, and just glue them down. Or you could use them to, if you like the design that you cut in your doily, you could use it as a stencil or a mask. Goodness, okay. So for this one, it's so super simple. I'm just gonna lit it up where I really kind of think I want it to be. And then I'm just gonna open up my spackle, get a palette knife, use a credit card, whatever you have handy. Get some of your medium out. You want it to be too thick, but you don't want it to be super, super thin. And I'm just gonna hold it in place with one hand. You have to be pricked. Don't stress if it doesn't work perfectly. And then just go around and add on your texture. Super easy, easy. And then once you feel like you've covered, you're just gonna set your doily or set that aside. And then your whatever you have. Awesome. This thing
Okay, I got everything nice and dry. It's actually, pretty quick and easy. And I have to dig my, I think that brush, alright, this brush might be a little bit dirty, but it doesn't matter, actually. The end result won't look like this, obviously. So, again, I'm just going to use some matte medium. I'm going to put it on both sides in the hopes that it will stick really well. And then I'm just going to try to line it up as best I can. I didn't draw a circle for that center when I made that cut, so that, oof, yeah, this brush has got black gesso in it. So that circle might not be, that center circle might not be circular or properly even, but I got it as close as I could. Now, the next step, if you don't have gesso, use white paint, it's fine. If, like me, you have a lot of ink spray, you may have to do a couple of layers. But the next step, and this also, because you have to wait for all your texture to dry, you may not be doing this, for like a couple hours, just depending on whether or not you've got a heat gun, the climate you live in, that sort of thing. But the very next step is we want to get some gesso on here. The gesso is going to help smooth out everything just a little bit, but you don't want to go crazy with it and end up filling in all the holes. So again, like we did the first time, use a soft wet cloth or something, and try to get any really thick stuff out of the holes that you have, if you have that happen. And this also is going to allow us to bring everything down to, back to white, to one neutral color. And that's another thing. If you don't want to do white, you don't have to use white gesso. You could use a paint, especially if you have a paint that is opaque and gives really great coverage. Because really the goal here, or the key to it, is to be able to get everything to the same color. So because I'm using the doilies for this one, the texture on the doilies is really thin. So I'm definitely going to have to do several coats, because I'm going to have to go over this and pull some of that gesso back out of my texture. But basically, we just want one cohesive surface color-wise, not texture-wise, but color-wise. Because I think the key to these, what makes them really work well and look good, is the fact that they're a single color. And a trick to working with a textured surface is you paint everything with your paper from one position. So that's what I'm doing now. Let me clean that up. I don't want my paper to stick down. So as soon as I finish, I'll show you the trick to it. I've done a lot of texture based work because I love texture. So I have just a few tricks I can share. And those of you who love texture already, may already know these little tricks. Boy, I'm really fighting that black gesso that was in this brush. I'm going to need to wash out all my brushes and paint this a couple of times. And you do want to go all the way to the edges with your gesso, just so that you have a similar surface all the way across the page. And some papers, even though the papers look white, when you put the gesso down, you may have it may be a different color, brighter, or more yellow, or something more blue. Right, so when you're working with a textured surface, it looks like you've covered everything But if you turn it to a different direction, you might see areas that you missed because of the texture. So that's one little trick, is to cover it completely from one direction, then turn it and move it to a new direction. And just keep doing that until you've gone all the way around and you don't find any more areas that you can see that you didn't cover with the gesso or white paint or whatever you're using. Now, like I said, mine is really super thin texture, so I'm just going to kind of go back over it. And I know it's going to pull a lot of my gesso back off, so that means I'll have to paint it once or twice more. But I just don't want to fill in all my holes. So I'm just pulling a little bit of it back off. And if you're feeling adventurous, you can use a palette knife on your, just kind of slowly looking over it now to make sure. Pretty good. You can use a palette knife or a credit card to spread some of the gesso on your page, and make sure you're leaving marks, drag marks with the knife. And what you should end up with is that look of an old plastered ceiling, especially if you do it a couple of times and you don't smooth it all the way out each time around. I happen to love that look, so I'm going to try for it. Kind of the look of Venetian plaster. And since I'm going to have to paint this again, I'll get a second, go at doing that. Alright, so I just need to clean up underneath of it a little bit so it doesn't stick when it dries. So your homework then is going to consist of creating your circles, creating any of, adding texture to any of them, or cutting out your centers of your doilies, depending on what way you're going about creating your medallions. You're going to do that and let it dry, construct it onto the page using glue, collage medium, whatever. You kind of want to get a good seal on it, otherwise then it might just look like stuff you stuck down. So, and then you want to go over it, which will give it, a cohesive color with paint of some color. It'll give it a cohesive color, as well as it fills in a little bit of the raw edges, so it kind of gives it more of that feeling as if it's all together and it was all done at one time. We won't get that 100%, but we'll get a lot closer to it. Another tip, if you're using really thin pieces like I am, another option would have been to take my doily pieces and, instead of securing them down, go ahead and paint them on, like scrap paper or something, so that I didn't have to worry about wiping over it to keep the holes from being filled. I could just lift it up and set it aside and let it dry. That might have also been a helpful way to go about doing it. So when you come back tomorrow, what you should have is a completely dry page that has your circles on it. Now, I said I was going to do 2 pages, so I'm going to move into the second one. I'm going to set this one aside to dry. And the first thing that I want to do is get texture on my circles, and I need to dig them back out of here because I covered them up with stuff. So I have so much stuff out here, you have no idea. It's a mess. Okay. I really am I'm just making a terrible mess. I don't want my circles to all be the same texture though. So I'm going to alternate them. First I need to decide, I like the thicker ones for the most part. So the first thing I'm going to do is decide which ones I'm going to keep. This is my largest one and I'm going to keep it. This is my smallest one, although it needs to be trimmed right there. I tore it a little bit when I was pulling it apart. So that's my smallest one. So I think I'm going to end up getting 3 or 4. Those are a really close fit, so I'm going to skip that one. I think that looks pretty good. So I've got 4. Let's see whether or not 5. I would like to have 5, but if I can't make that work, I can't make that work. Definitely not. Definitely not. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I had a centerpiece. Just going to cut it. And I think I'm going to cut it with a hint of a pattern to it. It'll be the only part that will have a hint of a pattern. Oh wait, I got to cut the outside. I got to cut both edges. So anyway, I'm going to cut the center into a little bit of a pattern, but this outside edge I'm not going to. I'm going to try to keep it a circle. I am not the best circle cutter, hence the reason why I made use of my die cut machine. No, I hate that shape. I'm just going to cut it as a circle because I hate that shape. Or hate's a strong word. It's not what I wanted at the moment. See, I'm even nice to random pieces of paper. I can't even be mean to paper. It's terrible. Well, it's not really a circle, is it? But it'll do. Okay, so I don't want them to all have the same texture. So I'm going to take out this one and this one. Okay, so these 3 I'm going to give one type of texture to. And then for the other 2 that I removed, I'll do something different. And let's see what I'm going to use. I want to go a little bit different this time, I think. I'm going to try using this paper. Yep, it's big enough. I'm going to use that, which is just laser cut scrapbook paper. That's all it is. And then I have another one that I've never opened, which is like these butterflies. So for the first one, come on. I'm going to do, and I'm also going to do a different texture medium. I'm going to use this crazy stuff, which looks a lot like spackle. But like I said, it's really sparkly. It has a shimmer in it, which I kind of like. And like I said, it's pretty dangerous. I have a coating on my hands, a barrier coating, so I should be fine. But it's not something it's something you should probably, most often wear gloves. So just want to make sure I this actually threw it down there in a reasonably interesting location. All right, I'm going to go with that. And I'm just going to try to hit my different circles. And then the next circle is up here. You could tape it down if you're worried about holding it in place. Or if you feel like it's moving on you too much. I'm a little more of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of girl, so I'm not going to bother. I'll just clean up my mess and hope for the best. Oof, this stuff stinks. It's a good thing I really like the way it looks because it smells. Maybe I should be wearing a respirator too with this stuff. Ugh. Although I'm pretty sure the only danger was contact to skin. Now it's pretty well stuck down. I don't have to hold it near as hard, but I have a tendency to get a little crazy and catch the edge of the stencil and send it flying, so I'm going to keep holding it down. I pretend to be adventurous. Okay, I'm pretty sure I've covered everything. So I'm just going to really slowly lift it because as I expected, I thought might happen, the little circles are sticking to it, so. I need to do this a little bit quicker if possible because it's going to start sticking to it soon. Yay. That was fun. Alright, I'm going to set this one aside and let it dry. And I'm going to pick these up. I'm actually just going to lay them down on my page. So with those down, reasonably flattened, they'll have a chance to start drying. Sit them over here. Now I need to clean up my mess. Now that's pretty awesome looking, isn't it? I should have done that on some scrap paper. Then I could have saved it. But I didn't think about it. So then you just got to clean up your mess. Yay. Yeah, the next one I'm going to do on scrap paper so I don't got to clean this up. Ugh, what a mess. I'm going to waste a paper towel. Albeit that's what it's there for, I suppose. Camera's might be auto-focusing like crazy right about now. Alright, so this is the other one I want to use. When you have these little things, I don't know if I've told you guys this or not, flip it over, take that little sticky bit, roll it to the back. Now it doesn't stick when you try to pull something out. I hate those packages because they do that. They stick until I finally realized, you don't have to fight that little sticky thing if you just flip it over. Okay, yay. I'm going to get another journal page since I have a ton of them. And I'm going to use that as my scrap paper. And that way I can reuse it later. So now I'm going to put my last two circles down. And then I'm going to put paper over it. Let's see. I'm going to put that side down. Hopefully it won't stick to my circles as much. And then try to hold everything into place. And start pushing it down.
I'm just kind of doing both at the same time. And I do more spreading than I do, pushing down, I guess, than anything, in the hopes that I'm causing to move too much, or I'm not going to catch these sharp little corners that are on her. I'm going to turn it because I have a hard time working with it at a certain angle and holding it down and everything. It helps if I actually get some out. I'm trying to shit because it's clotted up a little. It's be, so I'm trying to mush it in the container handed. Almost there. It's kind of like icing cake, really. With the exception that icing a cake, it usually smells good. I would never mistake this for icing. Ugh. Cover everything. They did. Yep, it's all covered. So I'm going to lift butterflies back up. No, it's still sticking to it. That's okay. I'm going to let circles stick this time so that I can move that out of the way, since I like it and want to try the way it is. And now I'm going to take my circles one at a time. The only problem with working with paper stuff is that it tends to stick after a pretty short period of time. I don't try to clean these laser papers off. It's just so much effort, and you just rip them, so I just let it dry like it is. And that's why they put up layers on them pretty quickly, because I've tried before in the past taking them off. All you end up doing is tearing them anyway. So it's just a matter of cleanup. I'm going to heat dry these. I'm going to glue them down the exact same way I glued them the page, and then I'm going to all a coating of gesso. By the time we come tomorrow, so have plenty overnight and dry. And I think so. Good luck on at a variety of these to try to make up little diamonds. This looks pretty. That's kind of neat the way that I feel the same too. You're gonna keep this up. I'll see you.